I'm Arthur Roberts. I was born on the 4th of January 1948, just 65. I was educated in Wednesbury. We moved around a little bit because of family problems. We moved from Myvord Road up into Friar Park, near here, and then eventually the family got a home together on Kings Hill. And Mrs. Foote was our careers teacher, and she sat on the same bench in the Magistrates' Court as the personnel officer from H Lloyd. So quite a few people got jobs at H Lloyd, and I didn't even have an interview. I was just taken on as an apprentice electrician. It so happened that in the cycle of electricians, the last apprentice had just got 21, and I was moved in. The cycle for apprenticeships was you started in July, August after leaving school, did a year in the either the engineering school or the foundry school, but I left school at Christmas. My birthday was January the 4th. January the 7th, on Monday, I started at H Lloyd. Because I couldn't go into the apprentice training school, they put me straight with an electrician. And halfway through the day, the charge hand came to me and said, "Arthur, you need to go to Wednesbury Technical College this evening." What? Yeah, we've signed you up for a technical college. So straight into learning and never stop learning. And yeah, I did my 7 months or so, 8 months with Gordon. Knew all about the company then, all about the works. And then when I turned up at the training school for the induction with the other lads, I was the one that knew everything about the works. I knew where the canteen was and where everything else was. And the training school was just about a kilometre from the works for the engineers. And the engineering apprentices and the foundry apprentices, we all turned up for the first 2 weeks as inductions, saw horrible films about industrial accidents to make us aware, and were told all about the rules and regulations of how to keep safe, basically. Then we split up. The foundry guys went down into the foundry. They had their small training school. They could make moulds, they could have steel brought across to make their stuff. And we were put into this engineering shop with benches, vices, hand tools, and we were learning all about the properties of steel, basically. The first task, our training instructor had come from an Air Force background, and you know, you have your first 6 weeks in the Army or the Air Force. They try and break you before they make you, and our breaking was to make a set of chisels for ourselves. Okay, so we had our 6 weeks at breaking us. Before then we were allowed to use the machines, because obviously handling and making steel products, you use machines to cut, shape, bend, whatever. So they taught us how to use the machines, the forge, the welding, everything properly. And then at the end of the year, we all moved into our various occupations. And then I gradually progressed through my 6 years of an apprenticeship. H Lloyd was started by Francis Henry Lloyd. He was associated with a steelworks in Darlaston, which became Bradley and Foster's. It was in Heath Road, and became works manager. I'm not sure of the date, but I know H Lloyd itself was about 150 years old before closure. He saw an opportunity and bought an old pattern shop in Jamesbridge and started a small foundry there. It slowly expanded until it took up 32 acres, 23 acres of which was covered for working under. It started with the old type of furnaces, cupolas and coal-fired type furnaces, but then moved eventually to electric arc furnaces, which, if you know about steel, it allows you to produce a better quality of steel. And the steel was made mainly from scrap, gathered locally. You need various types of scrap to mix together to make a quality of steel. So Heathworks was the next big step, which was the first works in Jamesbridge, which could produce castings up to about a tonne, I guess. And then there was the Jamesbridge foundry, which eventually could produce castings up to 30 tonnes. And then after I'd left the well, actually while I was leaving, during my leaving time, they were building the new foundry, which could make castings up to 60 tonnes. So you got everything from a small valve up to a steam chest, which would be as big as this room almost. And they made armaments during the war, shells, tank turrets, tank panniers, which is the front of the protective front of the tank. A couple of interesting projects. There was something called the Kaplan blades, which were a very high quality stainless steel product. They're going to be attached to turbines in a tidal valley in France. The Bosphorus Bridge in Turkey, the one in Istanbul, H Lloyd made the clamps for the cables which held the bridge. It's a suspension bridge. In the late 60s, H Lloyd were asked to help with a project in India to help them set up a foundry, because for some time H Lloyd had been making castings for the Indian Railways. Pretty much the same castings that H Lloyd made for the Indian Railways are still being made by the foundry in Chittaranjan. So H Lloyd closed, but the same castings are still required today. There was an overproduction of steel, but to my view, H Lloyd's were bespoke more than long-run steel. So there was a need for them where the government of the day did a deal that if they closed the main producer, which was H Lloyd at Wednesbury, who did most of the tonnage, the subsidiary companies would not be asked to do anything. They would stay. And I was told later that, I mean, all this investment had taken place, that the whole site, all the machines, all the plant was sold for £1 million. £1 million was given to the company to dispose of it. So yes, it was a family business, and then the family started to lose control, wanted a more streamlined business, I guess. They brought people in to sit on the board. Unfortunately, Mr. Michael Lloyd died in a fire in a hotel away for the weekend. Francis Norman Lloyd, FN, his older brother, was never ever in the best of health and died. So then the family didn't have control anymore. So it passed to various hands, and I think Cooper, a company called Cooper, had final control of it. Well, it was just an overproduction of steel in general, that all the power stations have been made, so the need for the steam chests, which were a quality and long-term product, they took months to make and were very expensive. There was a company called Ruston Bucyrus who made bucket diggers and drag lines, which were for open cast work. H Lloyd had a great relationship with them. They were into work, sports and all that sort of thing. But Ruston didn't keep up with the time. Ruston is still in America, didn't keep up with the times here, and as a big customer were overtaken by the likes of JCB, who made this versatile, hydraulically driven tool that could do most of the work of their diggers. So the customer base was sliding as well. The need for small castings fell off because of different materials that the same product could be made from. I mean, stupid things like, well, plastics could do a similar job. Aluminium had been developed to a degree where it was just as strong as steel, stronger but lighter. So yeah, the product set was slipping away. And there was, I heard about it and wasn't involved with it, there was an attempt to diversify in that they installed a rolling mill in one of the bays, but it was never ever successful. They could never roll steel so it stayed flat. This is what I was told. It used to curl up at the end, so I think that project was abandoned.